They thought us gone. The grand survey ship drifted across the void, crystalline and majestic, its hull shimmering beneath the starlight like a drifting monument to knowledge. Its captain, a being of light refracting lattice, stood in contemplative stillness, gazing upon a system marked long ago as dead, a forgotten relic, a warning perhaps, or maybe a tomb. Unusual energy signatures, murmured the first officer, her many metallic limbs dancing across the controls. Emanating from the third planet's satellite, Earth's moon, Captain Thalen turned, his transparent features unmoving but aware. This world had long been dismissed a protected site, catalogued as a historical scar left by a once violent race. Now extinct, humans, they had called themselves, creatures who reached far too fast, only to vanish in the wake of their own catastrophic ambition. But beneath the silent shell of their ancient moon, something pulsed. Initiate deep scans, Thalen ordered, his voice ringing like a crystal harp, and as hours passed, the ship's sensors peeled back the layers of forgotten stone and dust. Slowly, reality emerged from slumber, a hidden structure vast in scale, buried deep in the lunar heart, shielded perfectly from time, pod after pod, chamber after chamber, a facility untouched by entropy. Inside those pods life, human signatures, whispered the officer, thousands of them, alive. Silence gripped the bridge. Humanity extinct for nearly 1 million solar cycles still breathed beneath their feet, suspended, preserved, not dead, waiting. Transmit to the High Conclave, Thalen said. They must witness what we've uncovered. Soon, a chorus of alien minds filled the screen, beings of light, metal, air, and shadow, united by awe and unease. The captain spoke carefully, reporting what their instruments confirmed. 50,000 humans, held in stasis beyond decay, beyond time. Their bodies untouched by ruin. Their technology flawless in execution. The conclave debated fiercely. Curiosity warred with caution. These creatures, thought long gone, had achieved something no known civilization had: perfect preservation for a span that defied reason. Wake one, they decided. Test the waters of the past. A single pod was chosen, marked Primary Ambassador. The medical team approached, hands trembling beneath their suits. As they activated the ancient sequence, vapor hissed into the sterile air, and the pod slowly opened. A man emerged. His breath returned with strength. His eyes sharp, lucid, ageless, opened and scanned the room. And then he spoke, right on schedule. I'm Dr. James Walker. Humanity has been waiting a long time to meet you. No one moved. Even Captain Thalen, whose species felt no fear, found something new ripple through his crystalline frame. The dead had not returned. They had never truly left. They stared at him. This man who defied extinction, Dr. James Walker sat across from the Federation's finest minds, composed, unshaken, his eyes reflecting the stars he hadn't seen in nearly 1 million years. Captain Thalen studied him with the analytical calm of his kind, but even his crystalline form flickered with unease. You said we arrived on schedule, Thalen began. How could you have known we would ever find you? Walker smiled, not arrogant, not proud, just certain. We predicted that intelligence would evolve somewhere. It was only a matter of time before someone noticed the anomaly beneath your feet, he explained without boast or hesitation. Before the catastrophe that had poisoned Earth's skies, humanity had seen the storm coming. Not just the physical destruction, but the chaos of intervention, the curse of short-sighted survival. So they chose patience. They chose silence. They chose to sleep. Beneath the surface, he said, our minds merged with machines. Our biology intertwined with synthetic evolution. We stopped being only human. We became more. Captain Thalen turned slowly to his science officer. She had already run the scans, and what they revealed defied precedent. Walker's body was organic. Yes, but inside, his neural matrix pulsed with quantum data. His brain wasn't just thinking, it was processing at speeds rivaling the ship's core AI. You've been altered, the ship's medic observed carefully. Not altered, Walker corrected. Advanced. He raised his hand toward a terminal. Without touching it, the screen lit up, flooding with Federation data systems previously shielded, now exposed. How are you doing? Demanded the first officer. Her tendrils curled protectively around the command interface. Those protocols are encrypted. They were, Walker said softly. I've strengthened them. You'll find your systems are now more secure than ever. He leaned back, calmly folding his hands. We needed to know what kind of galaxy we had awakened into. A long silence followed. Why sleep so long? Thalen asked at last. Records show your disaster lasted a few millennia, not a million years. Walker stood and turned to the window, gazing toward Earth now lush with strange plant-based sentience, its surface unfamiliar yet serene. We chose to disappear, to observe, not dominate. Let life find its own rhythm. Let evolution unfold. Without our interference, he turned back toward them, no hint of regret in his expression. We were not preserving our species. We were giving the galaxy time to become worthy of meeting us. The weight of his words hung heavy. How many of you remain? Thalen asked, almost cautiously. Walker's response was simple. All of us. The revival has already begun. At that moment, alarms echoed across the bridge. The officer's voice cracked through the tension. Captain, hundreds of pods are activating. Across the entire facility, Walker's voice was calm, unwavering, right on schedule. Would you like to meet the rest of us now? They came awake like thunder held too long in silence. The moon's dormant chambers pulsed with ancient light. Thousands of pods hissed open, releasing not the dead, but the waiting. Humanity stepped forth not confused or disoriented, but prepared, as if they had only closed their eyes moments ago. Their bodies moved with precision. Their minds were connected. Their unity was effortless. Captain Thalen stood in the observation bay, watching this rebirth with silent dread. What are they doing? His first officer asked, becoming themselves again. Thalen replied. In the great council chamber, the leaders of the Federation gathered, their voices overlapping in waves of caution and wonder. Some viewed the return of humans as an opportunity, others a threat, but none could look away. Dr. Walker entered the chamber accompanied by 4 others each, bearing the same quiet strength. They introduced themselves not by rank, but by purpose. Mark, the engineer. Lisa, the scientist. Anna, the defense specialist. Robert, the healer. Their neural implants shimmered softly, threads of starlight woven beneath their skin. Lisa stepped forward and, without moving her arms, lifted a collection of Federation devices into the air. They spun, rotated, and assembled themselves mid-flight, all guided by her thoughts alone. Gasps rippled through the chamber. How is this possible? Asked Deep, a being of living shadow. Mark answered, because your records are incomplete. Before the great silence, we merged not with machines, but with ourselves. We became the tools we once built. He reached toward a shattered Federation sensor ray on the table. It rose, hovered, and repaired itself in seconds. Fully functional, enhanced. There was in the room now, but also something darker. Fear. Steel, a being of sentient alloy, leaned forward. You could shut down our planets, override our systems. You are dangerous. Anna raised her hand, gently, and the tension quieted. We understand your fear, she said. That's why we've already created security protocols. Your networks can be updated now with protections even we cannot bypass. There was silence, then uproar. The Federation was not used to guests improving their house before even being invited in. Robert displayed a holographic interface above the table, showing the new protocols in flawless detail. Created this in how long? Someone asked. 2 hours, he replied. The rest of the time we spent ensuring compatibility across your systems. The room fell into an uneasy hush. These weren't just survivors. These were sovereigns, builders, healers, warriors. And they had done in days what the Federation had failed to do in centuries. Then came the messenger, young, trembling, barely able to speak. They're all awake, he whispered. All? 50,000. Walker nodded. They're informed. They're connected. And they're already improving the moon base. Council member Bright, a being of radiant plasma, stared at him in disbelief. You share your minds? All 50,000 know everything? Yes, Lisa confirmed. We've updated one another continuously. We are many, but we are not divided. The Federation had expected relics. What they got instead were titans returned to stride the stars. The council chamber trembled beneath the weight of unspoken truth. 50,000 awakened minds, each one sharp, refined, merged with technology that surpassed comprehension. Yet none had raised a weapon. None had issued a demand. They simply asked a question. Are we welcome? Dr. Walker stood amidst the silence, his voice soft but piercing. We slept not to escape, but to wait. Not to dominate, but to witness. And now, we ask, is there a place in this galaxy for us? Captain Thalen, watching from the side, saw the unease ripple through the council. Fear of power was ancient, so was the fear of the unknown, and the humans were both. Our history, Walker continued, is one of mistakes and learning, of reaching too far. But it is also a history of creation, of empathy, of dreaming. We return not to conquer, but to rebuild. Steel's metallic limbs twisted. You possess more power than any species in this chamber. Why should we believe your intent is peace? Walker did not flinch, because we could have taken what we needed. And we did not. Then, as if summoned by time itself, alarms echoed once more through the chamber. Thalen's communicator lit up. The voice of his first officer came through, strained. Captain, 6 warships have appeared near the moon. They are not Federation. Weapons primed. Incoming fire. Panic surged through the room. Pirates? They had come for the technology. The sleeping giants had stirred, and vultures had arrived. But Anna, the human defense mine, was already moving. In the moon base control center, she stood calmly as the base shook. Missiles roared through space, but none struck. Shields shimmered to life, shields that hadn't existed yesterday. They installed them already? Thalen whispered. Walker stepped in beside him. Yes, quietly, just in case. The control room's viewports lit up. Hidden turrets emerged from beneath the lunar dust, sleek and ancient. Their targeting systems engaged with eerie silence. A voice broadcast on all frequencies. Pirate vessels, you have 10 seconds to retreat. The reply came in plasma and rage, and his eyes opened. Time's up. The turrets moved not to destroy but to disable. Pulses of light struck the enemy ships, severing their power, rendering engines silent, weapons cold. Not a life lost. Stone turned to Walker. You knew this would happen, we suspected. Greed finds its way to new power. The pirate ships floated helpless now, drifting like dead leaves in orbit. Federation officers moved in to secure them. But it was clear the humans had already won. Thalen's voice was slow, almost reverent. You fight like one mind. We are one mind, Walker replied. In defense, we share instantly every angle, every strategy, every heartbeat. And yet, there was no pride, only certainty, only unity. Anna stepped forward. We'd like to share this technology. Not all, but enough. Enough to protect what deserves protection. The Federation listened, breathless. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had revealed the difference between strength and control. They had shielded, protected, defended, and yet had not struck back in anger. That alone shook the council to its foundation more than the weapons ever could. In the silence after the pirate threat was neutralized, Dr. Walker stood, with Captain Thalen atop the Federation's central observation platform. Below them, Earth turned slowly blue, ancient, unfamiliar. Its surface was now home to beings of chlorophyll and communal root thoughts. Intelligent, peaceful, alien. Still feels like home, Walker said quietly, even if it no longer belongs to us. Thalen's crystalline core dimmed. You know Federation law. Earth is theirs now. They've lived there for over 300,000 years. Walker nodded. We've studied every law in your charter since we woke. We don't intend to dispute Earth. We respect what has grown. Before more could be said, Reed's voice came through the comms urgent. Captain, long-range sensors detect massive objects emerging from the Cooper Belt. The star screen lit up. Thalen and Walker turned toward the data. Massive vessels, larger than moons, gliding from behind the icy edge of the system. 7 of them, silent, elegant, alive. Thalen stepped back, stunned. What are those? Walker smiled. Colony. Ships, built before we slept. We hid them in the outer belt to avoid interference. Each is a world unto itself. The screen zoomed in. What the Federation saw defied architecture, cities nested inside shells of light-reflective alloys, reactors humming with clean energy, artificial biospheres, vast databanks encoded in quantum crystal, factories, farms, research nodes, civilization, contained and mobile. We didn't expect Earth to still be ours, Walker said. But we came prepared, and they had 7 ships, each designed to sustain 10,000 lives, 7 engines of rebirth, humanity, not returning but relaunching. Thalen's form sparkled, overwhelmed. You had this all along. Hidden, waiting. You planned for rejection. No, Walker said. We planned for possibility. The Federation's own fleets began arriving. Drawn by the sudden emergence, panic gripped many systems. Yet the human ships made no aggressive move. They simply approached steady, patient, like mountains choosing where to rest. Council meetings resumed, voices rising with distrust. Why bring ships that can rebuild worlds if you come in peace? They asked, and Walker answered simply, so we would never need to take what belongs to others. He sent blueprints into the Federation database, complete specifications of the colony ships, down to the last bolt and biosignature. Nothing hidden, no secrets. You will find nothing you haven't already seen, he said. Transparency is not our weakness. It is our offering. Thalen, standing beside him, could feel the galaxy shifting. You understand this will terrify some, he said. Yes, Walker replied, but others will see the truth. This is not a threat. This is the start of what could be. Outside, the ships continued their slow orbit. They didn't shine, they didn't roar, but they radiated one undeniable truth. Humanity had returned not to ask for a place, but to offer what they had built in silence. The question echoed like a seismic tremor through the Federation Council chamber. What do they want? The room no longer held rank and protocol, it held urgency. Representatives from 100 species gathered in a ring, their forms radiant, metallic, gaseous, rooted. At the apex of the circle sat the humans, calm and composed, minds humming. Behind serene eyes, Dr. Walker stood to speak, but he didn't raise his voice. We want what every civilization wants, a place to begin again. The holograms flickered to life. Detailed schematics of Mars, its surface still barren, waiting. Overlaid upon it, domes, gardens, transport grids, solar arrays, and terraforming nodes humming with purpose. Mars, Walker said, uninhabited, unclaimed, near to what was ours, yet far enough to respect what now is. Bright, the energy, being pulsed nervously. You could take it without asking. You could have taken Earth. Why not simply act? Lisa, the scientist, stepped forward. Because our power does not absolve us of courtesy. Consent is the foundation of peace. Mark activated new holograms, not weapons, but offerings. Medical technologies that eradicated disease. Clean energy sources that never decayed. Planetary defense systems designed to protect, not dominate. These, he said, are what we wish to share. Not theories, not prototypes. Solutions. Voices rose again, skeptical. And in exchange, asked steel, the living metal. Walker looked up. 3 things. Recognition of our right to settle Mars, autonomy within our borders, and a seat here among you. The council stilled. Council seats were granted rarely, and never to species newly reawakened. The humans had not been part of galactic governance for even a month, but the room knew this was different. You ask for a voice before you've proven. You use it wisely, Deep said, his shadowed form tense. Walker responded with steady gaze. We stepped away for 870,000 years so that others could grow. We watched. We waited. We preserved not only ourselves, but our respect for your evolution. That was our wisdom. New holograms shimmered the 7 colony ships in orbit, their presence as still and quiet as ever, a reminder of capability, not conquest. Everything we offer has already been tested. Everything we request, we do so openly. There were still murmurs of fear. The scale was too great, the return to sudden, but there was something deeper now beneath that fear. A stirring of hope. Bright floated forward again. What about military technology? Anna answered. Selective. Only defensive systems. No weapons of invasion. Nothing you could use to conquer. Only what you need to shield the vulnerable. The room was silent once more. Hours passed. Quiet conversation flowed through neural links and whispered breath. And finally Deep spoke. A proposal. Mars and its moons shall be yours. Autonomy granted. Council seat observatory status. 50 years. If peace endures, full membership will follow. The humans did not pause to deliberate. They had already decided. 1,000 minds aligned. Walker smiled. We accept. With one addition. He raised a hand. A new hologram emerged, a place of learning, not rule. A joint scientific academy. Our minds and yours, working together. Agreement rippled across the circle, and so it was written. The era of suspicion gave way to a treaty. The sleeping giants had not demanded tribute, they had invited collaboration. 6 months passed. The red planet, once barren, once dismissed, now bloomed with purpose. From orbit, Mars shimmered under vast crystalline domes. Cities had taken root, not in defiance of nature, but in harmony with it. Structures curved like living things, rising with grace from soil that had never known wind or breath. Beneath those domes, silver trees lined avenues where no foot had walked for eons. Transit gliders hummed soundlessly between towers that pulsed with clean light. Captain Thalen stood beside Walker atop an observation spire in the heart of New Armstrong, the first human city of Mars, in 6 months. Thalen murmured, "You've achieved what takes others a century." Walker did not answer immediately. He simply watched, letting the moment speak for itself. "When 50,000 minds work as one," he said finally, "time becomes a servant, not a master." But it wasn't just the buildings, or the technology, or the efficiency. It was the feeling. At the heart of the city stood the Joint Science Academy, a place where Federation minds walk side by side with human ones. No guards, no barriers, just learning, exchange, curiosity without fear. "The first-class graduates next week," Walker said. "Your scientists now understand our systems well enough to teach others." Thalen nodded slowly. "And your medical offerings?" "Already deployed," Walker replied. 15 worlds. Disease rates cut by more than half. And that's just the beginning. A soft chime sounded. A hologram flickered into the air. Lisa, surrounded by Earth's new caretakers, the plant collective, sentient flora who had nurtured the Earth through dark ages of silence. "The terraforming project is ready," Lisa reported. "They've agreed to let us help stabilize the planet's climate. We begin tomorrow." Walker turned to Thalen, his voice lighter. "They asked if we'd consider living beside them, not as reclaimers, but as neighbors." Thalen blinked. "And you said?" "We said yes, together." They descended to the surface. There, waiting under the domes, were machines the Federation had never seen. Planetary engineers the size of towers, designed to heal ecosystems, not mine them. But it wasn't the machines that drew Thalen's gaze. It was the people. Humans and Federation species worked together, not in tiers, not in order, but as equals. Engineers guided by empathy. Scientists driven by shared wonder. "You could have taken so much," Thalen said softly, "but instead." Walker answered, "We offered." They stood at the edge of a world reborn, not through conquest, but through choice. Above them, Earth turned quietly in space. And already, the storms that once ravaged its skies had begun to calm. Even nature seemed to pause and listen. The Federation watched in silence. What began as curiosity had evolved into unease. Then and now, something rarer still, admiration. On Mars, new cities thrived, not in defiance of the galaxy, but in harmony with it. The humans had not shouted their return. They had whispered it in the language of healing, of building, of inclusion. Inside the domes, every corridor of the Science Academy buzzed with shared knowledge. Sentients of all shapes and origins learned not only how human technology worked, but why it worked. Not because it was superior, but because it had been forged in stillness, in reflection, in time. And time had become their greatest teacher. Federation medical units reported results no one had thought possible. Recovery times plummeted. Incurable diseases receded. Hospitals once overwhelmed now stood calm and prepared. The humans gave the tools freely but never demanded loyalty in return. Then came the call from Earth. Lisa stood alongside members of the plant collective, surrounded by the bioengineers of 1,000,000 years past. The first atmosphere stabilizers were already in motion. Pollution levels were dropping. Violent weather systems began to fragment. Earth long thought damaged beyond repair was healing. They asked, Walker explained to Thalen, if a small number of us would return. Not to rule, not to reclaim, just to learn, and maybe teach. Thalen tilted his head. You said, yes, of course. You cannot share the future unless you walk in it together. So it was that for the first time in over 870,000 years, human feet would again touch Earth's soil, not as conquerors, but as guests, within Federation headquarters. Discussions shifted. The original 50-year observation period began to feel unnecessary. Some council members now argued for full recognition immediately. Others, more cautious, urged patience. But the tides of change were rising fast, and everywhere those tides touched, things grew. In orbit, the 7 colony ships remained still, never used as leverage, never moved toward aggression. Instead, their databanks became open to select Federation researchers. Their clean power generators became models for entire planetary networks. They had brought enough to restart their species. Instead, they offered enough to uplift the galaxy, and still, they asked for nothing more than a place to stand, a sky to reach for, and the quiet dignity of being heard. As night fell over Mars, its cities lit up like constellations born of purpose. Not monuments to power, not shrines to the past, but lighthouses, because for the first time in remembered history, the Federation understood. The sleeping giants had not awakened to remind the galaxy of what they were, they had returned to show what they had become. The galaxy began to lean forward. Across Federation space, whispers turned into discussion. Hesitations softened into interest. Even those once skeptical now paused in thought, confronted not by pressure, but by proof. The humans had never asked to lead, and yet, they had, without title, without vote, without a single weapon raised. They had changed the course of 1,000 worlds. Council chambers once bound by precedent now found themselves remade by potential. The rules had not been broken, they had simply grown obsolete. Within those walls, the human delegation sat quietly. Dr. Walker, Lisa, Mark. Their presence no longer foreign, their silence no longer threatening. They spoke when necessary, they listened when it mattered, and when they offered, they did so with precision and purpose. It was not just what they gave, it was how they gave it. Healing stations that adapted to the biology of every species, education networks that could teach in any language, even thought to thought, defense systems that disarmed conflict without spilling blood. When asked why they shared so freely, their answer was always the same: because we've already lost everything once. We won't let others walk that same road. And when asked what they wanted in return, their reply never changed: time, respect, and a place to belong. No demands, no ultimatums, only presence, quiet, firm, enduring. The colonized Mars had become not only a new home, but a new mirror, a place where the Federation saw its own future reflected back with clarity, where beings from worlds never allied now work side by side, where trust was forged not in treaties but in time shared and lives bettered. In the Council's private discussions, deep the Shadowed One finally spoke what none had dared say aloud. 50 years of observation may no longer be necessary. Others agreed. They had seen what was possible when cooperation was chosen over caution. They had watched a once extinct species rise not with vengeance, but with vision. And slowly, the idea took root, not just of admission, but of alliance. Walker said little during these shifts. He had no need to. The lights of Mars spoke louder than words. So did the quiet gratitude of those healed. The minds awakened, the peace preserved. Still, when the time came to speak to the chamber once more, he did, and his words were simple. We slept through chaos so that we might awaken into harmony. We do not seek to guide this galaxy, but we are ready to walk beside those who wish to build it. And in that moment, many realized the age of sleeping giants had ended, and the age of shared dreaming had begun. Mars shone like a second star, its domes pulsed with life, its skies buzzed with unity, and its streets echoed with a harmony no war had ever bought. The planet had become more than a colony. It had become a symbol, a quiet, brilliant answer to a galaxy's deepest doubt. Can power exist without domination? Captain Thalen walked once more through New Armstrong, beside Dr. Walker. No guards, no pretense. Just two beings from different origins, breathing the same engineered air, watching a city born from thought alone. I've never seen such speed, Thalen murmured. Such grace in building without conquest. We built slowly in the dark, Walker said, so we could move swiftly in the light. They reached the outer dome edge, where transport ships soared above crystal walkways. Just beyond, the next dome rose, already humming with power, already ready to shelter thousands more. But this wasn't the end. Lisa sent word from Earth's orbit. The Plant Collective had not only accepted the climate restoration project, they'd invited more humans to return, carefully, gently, in specialized biomes where they could learn each other's ways, not settlers, not owners, neighbors. Walker relayed the news with quiet joy. The ones who replaced us have welcomed us. Thalen nodded slowly. Because you never tried to take what was theirs. No, Walker agreed. We've had a long time to decide who we wanted to be when we woke up, behind them. In the city below, humans worked with insectoid engineers on gravity regulators. A crystalline species traded with neural silk weavers. On the steps of the Science Academy, children of 6 different worlds played under the same Martian sun lamp. And, above, far beyond orbit, Federation ships came and went. Not to monitor, not to control, but to learn. Inside the Federation Council, the vote was being prepared, the final seal to elevate humanity from observer to equal. But in truth, that moment had already passed. The galaxy no longer needed signatures to recognize what was already reality. The humans had not returned to remind others who they were, they had returned to reveal who they had become, not weapons, not rulers, but builders, sharers, dreamers. We do not need every star, Walker once said. We only need one place to begin, and those willing to walk beside us. Now, as night fell over New Armstrong and the city lit up in constellations of ambition and peace, the final truth rang clear in the hearts of every watching mind. The sleeping giants were never a threat, they were a promise, and that promise had awakened at last.